And we're back on the other side. Prosperity. And this is very important, again, for a married couple. And by now you know how important it is. I mean, think of the additional pressure it adds if things aren't going well financially, the challenges and that kind of situation, when it's up and down or when it's challenging, see, or when money has to come from parents, for example. That could be good for a short-term holdover, but long-term, it's ruinous. It's a bad thing. It's not good. Doesn't enable believing to be built amongst the couple to believe for their own finances. It produces weakness in the marriage, in the couple, together. It's not good. Short-term, holdover kind of thing, situations like that, yeah. Long-term, no. Why? Because God promised to supply whose need? All your needs. Okay. Ultimately, the source of all prosperity, God, must be acknowledged in thought, word, and deed. The adversary does his best to convince God's children that they shouldn't be prosperous. He provides a rationale for living less than abundantly. A rationale. It could be a lot of things. Well, this area just doesn't have good paying jobs. Well, I tried to get in at whatever, see? I tried to get in and it just, and so now I have to. You have to? You have to what? You have to take a low-paying job? Don't you fool yourself. There's something very insidious going on in our entire country along these lines. I have some magazines that I brought. I think they're in here. They're somewhere. Yeah. I got these for a reason. This one I got, Sex on a Single Boomer, because of this picture. No. Of a sexy boomer. No. This one, Dynamic Duo, Small Business Week, Small Biz. There's a lot being talked about women business owners. Here's a couple of them on the front page of this Business Week Small Biz. Women are opening businesses faster than men right now. Here's Black Enterprise. It has on here 50 most powerful women in business. It has pictures of 3 women who are besides 50. Huh? Yeah, she's not a government. She certainly would be one of them. Here we have Empowering Women. Best-selling author David Bach shows how smart women finish rich, great looks for every woman, Avon, the company for women, Amanda Gore, get the life you really want. Meet women who are making their mark. Now, is there anything wrong with women being in business?
Absolutely
Of
not.
course not.
Woohoo!
These are the days and times of the mystery. Since the mystery, where there's neither male nor female, bond nor free, barbarian, Scythian, all that stuff, none of that matters. I think I have some other ones somewhere, though. And those books. Give me that bag of books over there, please, Sophia. Thank you. Oh, here was another one. Can MTV stay cool? House CEO Judy McGrath must remake her TV empire for a digital world. That's another where the CEO is a woman. Let's see. Here's a great one. This book's called Strapped, Why America's 20 and 30-somethings Can't Get Ahead, by Tamara Drought. Interesting things there. Here's another one. New York Times bestseller, Nickel and Dime. Captivating. Just promise you'll read this. Nickel and Dime on not getting by in America. And millions of Americans work full-time year-round for poverty-level wages. Barbara Ehrenreich decided to join them, inspired in part by the rhetoric surrounding welfare reform, which promised that any job equals a better life. But how can anyone survive, let alone prosper, on $6 to $7 an hour? To find out, Ehrenreich moved from Florida to Maine to Minnesota, taking the cheapest lodgings available and accepting work as a waitress, hotel maid, house cleaner, nursing home aide, and Walmart salesperson. She soon discovered that even the lowliest occupations require exhausting mental and physical efforts, and one job is not enough. You need at least two if you intend to live indoors. Now, have you noticed that a lot of people, maybe perhaps that you know, work two jobs? In the Keys, they were working 2 or 3 jobs, and in Jamaica, 10-job man. Nickel and Dime reveals low-wage America in all its tenacity, anxiety, and surprising generosity. A land of big boxes, fast food, and 1,000 desperate stratagems for survival. Instantly acclaimed for its insight, humor, and passion, this book is changing the way America perceives its working poor. Are we supposed to be working poor? No, Evelyn said, is there a solution? Well, the solution's in the Word. They can't give you a solution.
Yeah. Right, but they can write a book about it.
Sure, and make some money off of it. Drowning in student loan and credit card debt, can't afford to get married, buy a home, have children. See, since when are married couples supposed to think, well, I can't afford to have children? That's not something I can afford. Where does all that stuff come from? And last, a book for the under 35 generation and their parents that explains why it is not their fault. It's no time to be 21, and we have Tamara Drought to thank for describing to us in precise detail the forces arrayed against young people and what can be done to alleviate the situation. Thomas Frank, author of What's the Matter with Kansas. Strapped offers a groundbreaking look at the new obstacle course facing young adults, the under 35 crowd. You guys are under 35, aren't you? How old are you? 30? 31? 31? 30? 20? 28? 30? 26? Okay. 34? 30? Okay.
I feel 13 or 14.
Okay. That's... You are almost 29.
Or something like that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'd like to buy that list so I can make sure. As they try to build careers, buy homes, and start families, as Tamara Drought explains, getting ahead is getting harder. This must be written for unbelievers. A college degree is the new high school diploma. But it now costs a fortune to get that degree, and students graduate with crippling debts. Good jobs are scarcer thanks to stagnant wages and disappearing benefits, and the cost of everything, starter homes in Florida, definitely, starter homes in Florida are pricey, health coverage, child care keeps going up and up. Budding families, even those with 2 incomes, struggle to pay bills, while Visa and MasterCard have become the new safety net. Young adults are starting out behind the financial 8-ball, borrowing their way into adulthood and wondering whatever happened to the American dream. Is this the way things have to be? Not at all, argues Tamara Drought, a leading young commentator and a fresh voice for change. She shows how the obstacle course bedeviling young adults didn't just happen. It was allowed to happen by a generation of leaders more interested in serving wealthy interests than in investing in the nation's future. Strapped brims with ideas for a new kind of America where every young person can go to college, buy a home, and start a family. STRAP will help jumpstart a national conversation about where the country is failing and how we can make it right again. So, her solution... Oh, here we go. Tamara Drought is director of the Economic Opportunity Program at Demos, a national think tank headquartered in New York City. Quote from Dr. Werwell: think tanks are stink tanks. You sit around and where does new information come from? Spirit, one or the other. So you can sit around thinking all you want, but that won't solve the problem. But I'm happy to read about it because you can read and you can go, wow, I understand that. They say music feeds the soul. When you're flat broke, it can also feed your stomach. Several years ago, my husband and I found ourselves sitting in the middle of our living room floor, our entire CD collection spread out before us. We had not a dollar between us, and payday was 3 long days away. It wasn't the first time we'd been strapped for cash, but we never imagined we'd be peddling our wares for food money at the age of 30. By the time of our CD purge, becoming adults had left us with $57,000 in student loan debt and $19,000 in credit card debt. We were so far behind in fulfilling our own expectations, our parents' expectations, and society's expectations, we didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We weren't clothes hounds, we didn't take vacations, and we seldom went out to dinner. Most of our economic woes could be traced back to 8 years of startup costs, pots, sheets, a bed, flights for family visits and friends' weddings, unstable incomes from shoestring salaries, 3 bouts of unemployment, a gig at graduate school, and 1 major career change. And we weren't alone. When we talked to people our age from all walks of life, it became clear that we weren't the only ones who were strapped. While my husband and I were dismantling our CD collection to make some cold, hard cash, other young adults were facing tougher decisions and making bigger sacrifices. Across the country, young adults of different cultural, social, and economic backgrounds were confronting brick walls on their path to adulthood. And there's a lot of stories here about different people trying to do things and, in that age range. Well, we know from the Word, Christians, I don't know about all 35s, under 35-somethings, but Christians should be prosperous. So, the adversary does his best to convince God's children that they shouldn't be prosperous. He provides a rationale for living less than abundantly. He gives the believer reasons why lack is good or at least acceptable. Many times the believer is or can be swayed by cultural acceptability. Well, you don't want to have too much. There is a culture of lack that exists, where, well, if you got money, that's bad. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to be? Who are you trying to be? There is that kind of culture as well out there that, or as one person put it, give up your dreams, just get a job. The proverbs of the day remove thinking and many times contradict God's Word. Oh, I skipped something. Cultural norms become truths for many individuals. The, quote, proverbs of the day remove thinking and many times contradict God's Word. God tells us in 2 Corinthians 10:5 to demolish our human logic. From the high position we have lifted it vertically against the Word. Be wise, against the knowledge of God. Be wise. Lead every thought captive to Christ, which you have attentively listened to and heard. Christians should be prosperous. to convince God's children that they shouldn't be prosperous. He provides a rationale for living less than abundantly. It's really something when you start. And I read this stuff over and over again and think it through. Read it and think it through. Think it about it and practice, and then practice it. Go for it. What do you have to lose? Nothing. I still take more risks than people half my age that have twice as many years ahead of them. If they're half my age or something, And I think, what has young people so afraid to go for it? The adversary. Well, what if I fail, Or has them asking at jobs, well, what are the health benefits? You're 20. What? You're 20. What are the health benefits? You're 25. You can fall back on. That was something that that's one of those cultural norms. When we first moved to Pittsburgh and we're building this company and we've got everything on the line, at risk moving, in Pittsburgh, living in a hotel for a period of time, on trade and believing and just working towards this goal. And we go to these restaurants. Of course, this was after things started clicking. So we go to this restaurant. And it seems like 2 or 3 restaurants in a row we went to, there was a waitress there with a master's degree in something. One place we went and the waitress was working on her, doctorate in something, physical therapy or something. So, master's, doctor. We met a rocket scientist, believe it or not, who was working as a cook in a restaurant. So I said to him, why aren't you working in your field? Well, I knew that being a cook would always be something I could fall back on. You don't move ahead by falling back. Exactly right. Just be conservative. There was, I won't mention her name, but someone very near and dear to me, who when we were having some challenges, putting things together and moving ahead and laying it on the line, sent a letter to me and said, just give up your dreams and, go get a job or something like that. This person recently admitted to me that they just had no guts. When it came, I just didn't have the courage, this person said. When I grow up, I want to be you. Now, this person's a lot older than me. She said to me, when I grow up, I want to be you. I want to be like you. I said, well, thank you. But she admitted that she just did not have, she goes, I have the brains, I have the knowledge, I have the ability, I just don't have the courage, and I didn't have the courage. I could have been a lot more, and she finally said, I could have had a lot more, and I have really nothing. Vince. Hey, Vince.
Hi.
Yeah, so it takes some courage. We're back now. That was Vince that called. But you take the word, you read it until you can get in your head and believe it and go for it. Unleashing God's prosperity to you, allowing God's abundance to flow to you. Here in the introduction, we haven't heard back from our concierge people. I guess we better just go and have it done so everyone can have this and be on the same page, because this is an important aspect of a successful marriage, having this financial stuff figured out. All right, so we'll be back. So we're on the page, Christian Should Be Prosperous, called Introduction. It's page VII, which is 7, but it's Roman numeral 7, so I don't know what relationship it has to any of the other page numbers. However, why are we still using Roman numerals? I see. What you mean we, white man? Anyway, introduction. multitudes of Christians are limiting God's prosperity to themselves. Man, this stuff's exciting to me. Because I've been working on this, as you know, for years and years and years, and I learn a little more and learn a little, apply a little more and learn a little more and apply a little more and teach it, and doggone it, sure love for you to grasp it and take it and run with it. Because the future of our ministry are, you guys have been around, the heart of the ministry, I've lived my life in front of you, the good, the bad, the ugly, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's just all been laid out there. So, the Lord tarries for a while, for another 100 years. Hey, well, 102 years. Someone else will have to carry this thing on. Multitudes of Christians are limiting God's prosperity to themselves because they fail to apply the principles involved. And the WIA and GA, guess what those are?
What? WIA?
Yeah, what's that stand for? No.
Something,
What about HTR?
hope for the return?
No.
Wait a minute, those are keys.
The keys. What is available?
How to receive
God's
equal
ability,
eternal.
equal ability.
I knew that.
Okay. See, so God's prosperity to themselves, that's what's available. It's also God's ability equals his willingness. Because they fail to apply the principles involved, how to receive it, what to do with it, and opening the floodgates to allow God's abundance to flow to them. I firmly believe that Christians who know the will of God and love him will do the will of God. You can know the will of God only as it is taught to you and explained to you from the Bible, which is the recorded will of God. This study in the law of prosperity is an educational venture, a training school. I looked up all these words and had it in my other one that was lost in the airport. For all those who desire not only to know the will of God, but to do his will, thus gaining for themselves the blessings which his will promises. And I put God's prosperity entrepreneurs. There's a reason I brought up all that stuff with the women doing this, that, and the other. See, there's nothing wrong with women being CEOs of public companies and all that stuff at all. We've had cultural changes. We've had things to change. There's nothing wrong with that at all. In a marriage, however, there's a unique relationship in that marriage. Who's the head in the marriage? The husband. So whatever happens with finances, where they come from, all that stuff is up to the husband. Does that mean a woman can't be a CEO and be married? No. Or be wealthy. No. But what does the money go towards? Who gets paid? When does it get paid? All those things, whether she's CEO, whatever she is still up to the husband because he's the head. Does she have any say in the matter? Absolutely. But the final decision is whose? We're going to see that later. See, and what we're seeing that's insidious is a shift where women making all this money now are determining what should happen in the household in that unique relationship of marriage. If she doesn't get married, she can do whatever she damn well pleases with her money. She earned it. And she has every right, according to the Word of God, in the day and time of the mystery, to earn as much or more than any man. And we already know every woman believer, logically, should earn more than every man unbeliever. And every other woman unbeliever. Every unbeliever, man or woman, right?
Right.
So that automatically puts a woman of God, a woman who is a son of God, knowing why we use son, has nothing to do with male or female in the spirit, has everything to do with the rights and privileges of a firstborn son. So, but in that marriage, boy, things are a little different. And there's all kinds of psychological problems, what they call psychological problems, caused when the woman is the one who is either the breadwinner or making the most or bringing in the most or whatever. There's all kinds of issues and things that have to be figured out, worked out, thought through according to the Word, or things get wacky. That's the reason we're dealing with this whole all the women thing, because natural man can't figure out what to do with that when it gets into the marriage. Natural man can't figure out what to do with it. No matter where it is or when. It doesn't make any difference. Next page. 2 Corinthians 9:8. It's always, not always except when. You perhaps remember that scripture since it's one of my favorites, and I've quoted it about 5,000 times since knowing you, or 10. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that ye always, having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. And it's always, not always except when I'm between this, or not always except when I live in this area, or always except when they're not hiring here. See, there's no except when. It's always, right? This is why you just read this stuff, and you got to find time, take time, make time. Make sure between knowing all the great TV shows that you know the greatest show on earth and in the heavens, the Word, right? And that you really know what that show's talking about. See, it's not always except when you sin. Always except when you feel bad. Always except when the economy is down. Oh, you don't have that. Because you don't have one of these. This is on my notes in Christians Should Be Prosperous. Okay, now we're at chapter 1, the profit in giving. 3 John 2, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul does what? Many professing Christians need to recognize that this passage is God's will for their lives. God's will above all things is prosperity for his children. To be in health is also his will, but that is not our primary consideration in this study. It'd be nice to have a study where that was the primary consideration, however. Hint, hint. Someone could work that and put that together. It'd be tremendous. To be in health is also his will. Okay. However, please note that both prosperity and health are dependent upon, even as thy soul prospereth. It was interesting when the Haitians when the country of Haiti decided to make voodoo the state religion. I was reading up on this stuff in preparation for an advanced class and found out that the two things they go to these idols, which they call fetishes, or they're idols, that's what they call them, fetishes, is prosperity and health. Those are the two things that they're looking for the most. And so they go to these false gods and give all this money and do all this stuff. And of course we know if they get healing, it's healing paid for, because the adversary never gives anything free. I mean, it's healing's paid for. You get healed, you're going to pay for it somewhere down the road. And the money they get doing this witchcraft and operation of devil spirits and all that stuff, look at the country of Haiti. Great vacation spot, right? Can't wait to go there. No. Their own people are leaving in droves. So their state religion stinks. So there. I said it. Voodoo? Juju. Yeah, it's not the true God. But those two things, how do you like that? Those are two of the most basic things that people want. And our God provides it. Many professing Christians think it wrong to pray for prosperity, yet they would like to have carloads of money. So they'd like to have carloads of money, but they think it wrong to pray to prosperity. This produces an attitude of condemnation. Think about it. You think it wrong, but you'd like to have it, but you think it's wrong. So you're going to be in condemnation. Some even go to the extent of severely criticizing those who seem to be, quote, specially favored. God has no favorites. We were hanging out with a couple of folks, I won't mention their names, but we kept talking about one of my favorite phrases, every $100,000 helps, or every $1 million helps, or whatever the number is that helps. And whenever I ever say that, the person would lift their hand to the sky. Yes, Lord, you must, you're listening. That's not an attitude of prosperity. That's as if it's some special situation. It's not a special situation. It's not about favorites. God doesn't have any favorites. Prosperity is dependent upon certain definite laws, which everyone may learn and apply. It's not being special. It's not a special privilege only afforded to certain people. Anybody that applies the principles can prosper. Really? There are no he has no favorites. God is no respecter of it's conditions. He's a respecter of conditions. But the law of prosperity must be viewed in a spiritual light. And here's where people go, see, it has to be viewed in a spiritual light. God doesn't really want you to have it that much. You read this, and it's just the opposite of what they try to say. When prosperity is viewed in its true spiritual perspective, then other values fall in the proper order and sequence. Many professing Christians and many struggling churches are failing to reap God's abundance because of the lack of teaching and proper understanding of the spiritual nature of prosperity. He's still pounding it home. They lack the true perspective regarding financial prosperity. Well, what is it? Well, you'd have to get the true perspective from where? The Word, and here it's coming. God's will is that Christians always have all sufficiency in all things. 2 Corinthians 9:8. That is the true perspective regarding financial prosperity. You're supposed to have it all the time, in all situations, always. There it is. Not, well, if you're not pious enough, and if God doesn't smile on thee, and, Lord, isn't it my turn yet? And nothing to do with that. Always. That's the true spiritual perspective. Here's another one. Psalms 37:25. I have been young, and now am old. By cracky. Yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Throughout the Bible, material prosperity always hinges upon luck. No, tithing. Tithing was established centuries ago as God's basic law of prosperity and has been practiced by spiritually minded people ever since. If you don't tithe, you're not spiritually minded. As a method or system, the tithe has never been improved upon except by tithing with your eyes closed on your knees. No. Except by doing what? Increasing the proportion. Today, as through all ages, man is free to choose. We may keep the spiritual law of proportionate giving and thus reap the rewards, or we may withhold the rightful portion from God and take the consequences. This truth is an historical fact written in bold letters across all the pages of history. Even the unbelievers recognize giving as a vital principle of spiritual worship. It is the foundational key to material prosperity. There it is. Without that, you're not even doing the foundational key. I'm fully aware of the truth that ours is an age of grace, that we as born-again believers, not under law but grace, yet would a believer under grace, which is so much bigger than what believers had under law, do less than believers did under law? Well, would you?
No.
Certainly we would not do less than our tithe, since the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus will not tolerate such a thought if we desire his blessing. Christ fulfilled all the Mosaic law. However, he did not terminate the immutable laws such as believing and prosperity. Many people believe that tithing was instituted by Moses. However, it did not begin with Moses or the Mosaic law. Many years before Moses, in the days of Abraham, Melchizedek, king of Salem, blessed Abraham, saying, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. Genesis 14:19. This blessing by Melchizedek upon Abraham was responded to by a tithe, 1/10 of all Abraham possessed. As Abraham was blessed by Melchizedek under God's immutable law of prosperity, so God blesses his Christian children today. See, the law is the same. It has not changed. The tithe as a minimum payment results in a minimum response to such a blessing. See, that tithe as a payment is a blessing. It's considered a blessing. And there's a minimum response to that minimum payment, to such a blessing. For a Christian, the tithe is a minimum external manifestation of an internal spiritual recognition that God is our basic source of supply and prosperity. Isn't that fantastic? Because, see, it takes the focus off the economy. It takes the focus off of a lot of things other than God as the basic source. Not the economy, not where you live, not what your current skill set is. It's God who's your basic source of supply and prosperity. Which is a good thing, because God never changes. In making the tithe our minimum, we share the knowledge of God with others, and thus open the floodgates for prosperity to ourselves. A lot less pressure on a marriage if there's floodgates of money coming in. You know, people are brought up different ways, but it seems that women get very concerned if there isn't money there to pay the bills. For some reason. Yeah. So she's like, fix this. You know?
Come back up, bite you in the butt.
Right. Fix this. See? So, we got to fix it. We need to fix it and all. Men, again, it seems, can tend to think in the longer term and see further along and plan. Women are thinking about some of the things that have to happen right now. Well, you know, okay, that's great. And it varies in couples. I mean, there can be differences in that. There can be differences. I've found it to be tending to be more in women, but it doesn't. I haven't seen that in the word where it has to be. But there is that keepers of the home aspect where, hey, the home front. And okay, yeah, but what about the home situation? And all these nice little things women want to have in their homes. All that stuff. I don't know. But I know this. I've been rich and I've been poor, and rich is better. Put it that way. Maybe that'll help you. From the beginning, the tithe was frequently referred to and mentioned as the reasonable and honest return to the Lord of the increase in recognition of the good he gave. As long as the people tithed, they prospered in everything. When they withheld their tithe or tried to substitute second-rate offerings, when they became stingy with God and refused their rightful offerings to him, they became afflicted, oppressed, diseased, and defeated. When we fail to adhere to God's law of supply, we immediately begin to close the floodgates to ourselves and our own benefits. When we recognize God with our first fruits and by the love in our hearts and with the proper devotion in our souls, give heed to him, then we open the way for God's financial and material prosperity to flow to us. It's called cash flow. The prophet Malachi, also known as Malachi, the Italian prophet, who wrote the last book in the Old Testament, which stands as a liaison bridging the Old Testament age and the New Testament gospel administration. It's not the New Testament gospel administration. The Gospels are part of the Old Testament. So that would need to be an adjustment here. Makes the blessings of tithing vividly clear. Malachi 3:7-12. Even from the days of your fathers ye are gone away from mine ordinances and have not kept them. Return unto me, God says, and I will return unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. But ye said, wherein shall we return? Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Accurately, ye have cursed me with a curse. This is one of the emendations or changes that was made by the Sepharim, who were a group that were responsible to keep track of the scrolls properly. But this change was made because they thought it was insulting to God to say, you have cursed me with a curse. So they changed it to, you are cursed with a curse. Accurately, it's from the Hebrew, ye have cursed me with a curse. You're cursing me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. It's interesting, this meat was not just food, but it was the prey that was used for the sacrifices. It's interesting. And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Or as it says in the Lamza, until you shall say enough. It's enough, that's enough, that's enough. We've really worked this stuff too and talked about this stuff. You know what, you would say right now, for example, Jill, pick on you, since you're right here. You would say right now that you're not saying it's enough. Are you? To God. You're saying, I've had enough, don't give me any more, I don't want any more prosperity. Right. Well, as we were working these things, I found myself, when there was all this work, there's money coming in, but there was all this work to do, going, oh man, there's so much work. So I started complaining about all the work. Well, the work was what was bringing in the prosperity. So if you say it's enough to the work, you're saying it's enough to God. You're saying that's enough. I don't have any more. I can't take any more right now. I can't work and go to school. It's too much. Oh, so then you're saying it's enough. Okay. You can stop right there, Lord. Think about it. If He blesses you with the wherewithal, and it's enough, then you're saying it's enough. I'll open the windows of heaven, pour you out a blessing until you shall say enough. It's funny. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground. Do you understand that or no? Did you get it? See, if you complain about the work that brings in the prosperity, you're complaining about the prosperity. What are your alternatives? Don't complain. Okay, what else? Grow so you handle more, renew your mind, and decide, okay, and thank the Lord for all that. Hire some other folks. There's some other options other than complaining and going, oh boy. And it's subtle. Whew. That sure was a long day. Man, oh man. Working like a frickin' dog. Now there can be a humorous thing to that, but if you're genuinely complaining, God knows that, and He goes, oh, I sure don't want you to burn out, my child, so let's just cut this spigot off. Right. Yeah, right. See, I guess we want, here's what we want. We just open our door and stumble over a bag of money on the way out to our car, right? But the principles of God do not work that way. Rebuke the devourer for your sakes. He shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast your fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed. For you shall be a delightsome land, saith the Lord of hosts. Whatever our life's calling may be, doctor, lawyer, and Indian chief, we can prosper only, rich man, poor man, baker man, thief. We can prosper only as we return to God at least a tithe of all our increase. Then we have His divine protection as well as His manifold blessings. Tithing opens the floodgates for God's abundance. Cool. It makes possible the natural inflow, and I'm talking cash flow, because of the natural outflow. For as we give, we receive. Did you hear that? For as we give, we receive. It's a flow. See, it wasn't designed that you would tithe and stop at tithing. Have you ever known God to be stingy with you? No. When you give, He always gives more. And then you go, oh, I'll just tithe of this more. See, what we cut it off ourselves, and we bring it back down to the previous level. He gives us more so that you could actually give more than the tithe, but you go, oh, I'm only supposed to really tithe because I'll use all the rest of this on whatever, blow it, spend it on stuff, and just tithe.